Today I'm reacting to a new great video by Saab, Shielding the Baltic Sea. My name is Max Villman, I'm a former fighter pilot in the Swedish Air Force, and let's go. Yeah, this video is quite new as the time of this recording. It's fantastic, filled of great shots, and we will talk about protecting the Baltic Sea, we'll talk about the Gripen, we will talk about integrated air defense, etc, etc. So let's jump right into it.
Från ett luftburet perspektiv så ser vi olika typer av hot, bland annat de taktiska ballistiska missilerna.
Det kan vara drönare, flygplan eller helikoptrar.
In this episode, our attention turns towards the sky, a theatre of strategic importance that requires constant vigilance, and that is as vast as the Baltic Sea itself. Defending this airspace requires a delicate balance between defensive and proactive actions to ensure the security of the domain. The task also necessitates cutting-edge technology, as the evolving nature of security challenges requires constant adaptation. In military contexts, the term airspace is commonly associated with fighter jets. While this is partially true, defending the skies requires much more than just pilots and their jets. Modern warfare brings forth threats that can approach at supersonic speeds and from multiple directions simultaneously. Fending off these threats requires...
Exactly, and we have talked about this before on the channel, but of course you have many different kinds of threats, you have many different kinds of systems, and just having an airplane in the air without any, if you don't have a good maintenance part, you don't have good technicians, well-trained technicians, you don't have well-maintained ground radar stations, you don't have airborne early warning, if you don't have good runway operations, etc., then it doesn't work. You need a complex web of systems, and you need a complex web of well-trained individuals in all categories. It's not just about the fighter pilots. And if you take a look here, you have an example of a cruise missile or perhaps an anti-ship missile, and an anti-ship missile is basically just a cruise missile that's adapted to defeat ships and not attack things on land. And this is what they typically do. They typically fly quite low over the sea using radar altimeters. And then some of them in their end phase can accelerate up to supersonic speeds above the speed of sound, but typically they have a cruising speed that's below the speed of sound, so they can be intercepted by a fighter aircraft, for example, and of course you can defeat them with ground-based air defenses either on ships or on land. The problem with that is that they are flying very low, so the radar horizon, because the Earth is curved, with the radar horizon you detect them quite late because of their low flight altitude, so you get a very short reaction time to defeat them, to find them, classify them, and then start your engagement. And the same is a bit opposite true if we look at ballistical missiles, which they mentioned in the beginning. Here we have two different paths. So a cruise missile or anti-ship missile typically goes straight towards the target, may do some maneuvering, and then quite low all the time. And then the ballistic missiles, they come from space basically. The tactical ones can be fired and have a trajectory that's actually in the atmosphere all the time, depending on the distance of the target. But they all come with a very high angle of impact and with a very high supersonic speed because of their boost function, and then they are basically falling down with very high speed towards the target, which makes them very difficult to intercept. If you want to intercept them, typically you don't do that with fighter jets, but if you have ground-based air defenses, you need to be very close to the intended impact, because if you try to shoot something from the side, so to speak, it's very difficult because you need to shoot so far in advance that it's typically very difficult to do with the high speeds that we are talking about.
Simultaneously, fending off these threats requires a complex web of technology that enables us to detect and, ideally, act to prevent incoming dangers. The only crux is these decisions and subsequent actions must be made in a split second. So, how is it possible? Tune in to the next episode to unravel the secrets behind defending our skies.
De kan nås från väldigt långa distanser, och de kommer också med en väldig hastighet, överljudshastighet, som gör dem otroligt komplexa att verka mot.
She's talking about ballistical missiles, and when it comes to ballistical missiles, you typically have different kinds of ranges, from the tactical or short ranges through medium-range ballistic missiles to all the way to ICBMs or intercontinental ballistic missiles, which of course can be fired from one continent to another, so they basically have unlimited range. You typically use tactical ballistic missiles to shoot, for example, for Sweden's sake, from Kaliningrad to Sweden or from St. Petersburg to Sweden, and they typically give us a warning of 10 to 20 minutes. And you typically, even though they fly quite high, so you can detect them with radar, you typically also use space-based assets to find their launching. Usually you find the heat of their exhaust of the rocket booster, because these are basically spaceships, almost space rockets. So you detect the firing of them, and then you can start to make your proactive measures. Of course, it doesn't give us enough time to move around ground-based air defenses. They need to be in position. So that's what makes it very, very difficult to protect it. In the Ukraine war, Ukraine has, with the Patriot battery, managed at several times to defeat Russian ballistic missiles. But those engagements, as far as open sources depict, say that they were targeting the Patriot systems themselves with these ballistic missiles. So obviously the Patriot battery was in the right spot to defeat them, because they were the target, so to speak. But it's very, very complex, and it gives short forewarnings. And they talked a little bit about split-second decisions, and usually these kinds of systems have a lot of automated functions to make sure that those decisions are made in time. So you don't have to wait for a human to make the decision. The human already made a decision in advance. For example, if this type of threat is detected, then you are the weapon system, you are authorized to engage. That's typically how you want to deal with that.
För att möta den här typen av hot, exempelvis taktiska ballistiska missiler, så behöver vi säkerställa att rätt system har rätt information vid rätt tidpunkt för att på ett optimerat sätt kunna verka mot dem.
Protecting the Baltic Sea airspace is strategically vital. Surveillance radars continuously monitor the skies. Most coastal nations have a network of radars and other sensors permanently mounted, keeping constant lookout for ships and aircraft.
And also cruise missiles and drones, of course, and helicopters. But before I go any further, please do me a favor and give a thumbs up, a like to the video, and subscribe if you haven't already. And if you want to help me grow this channel, please consider sharing this video with someone you think will benefit from the message and think it's enjoyable. That helps us a lot. Thank you so much.
Advanced surveillance aircraft, such as the Global Eye, significantly improves visibility and coverage.
And the advantage of using a system like the Global Eye, which doesn't have, the typical NATO AWACS, they have a big dome on the top, which mechanically turns around to create a picture. And these are AESA radars, so they are controlled not by mechanically moving things, but by using electronics instead, and to send them. And you basically have no downtime at the same time as these as the turnaround mechanical radars do. And also see that these aircraft typically, these airborne early warning aircraft, they typically have other sensors as well. So they can have active sensors like the radar on top here, but they also can have passive sensors to detect other ships or aircraft transmitting with radar, for example, and then you can triangulate those kinds of systems and classify them as well. An important part here is that you have a web of integrated systems, so your airborne early warning assets like the Global Eye here, your ground-based air defenses, your ground-based radars, your ships, your fighter aircraft, etc. All that these are integrated, so you create this recognized marine picture, recognized air picture, and recognized ground picture. So you have a mutual shared picture of what's going on, so you can make the greatest decisions, or the best possible decisions. Because the more information you have, the better decisions you can make, if that information is correct, of course.
Operating at high altitudes, they can extend their reach beyond the capabilities of ground-based radars. These technologies enable swift responses to threats, ensuring the safety and security of the region.
Och vi vill ju se saker och ting så långt ut som möjligt, både tidsmässigt och avståndsmässigt, så att vi skapar oss time to act.
Earlier this year, a US-tagged drone was sabotaged by a Russian fighter jet in the airspace above the Black Sea. Footage released of the event shows the Russian aircraft seemingly intentionally releasing large amounts of jet fuel on the drone to force a landing.
Seemingly intentional, I think we can say for sure it was intentional, but I'm a bit less PC than Saab's official videos, of course.
Whether intentional or by accident,
It's not
the
by
event
accident.
sparked media coverage all across the globe. This just goes to show the magnitude of the actions we take in the air and how carefully we need to evaluate even the smallest of interactions.
Östersjön är ett litet hav. Reellt hot här, det är från attackflyg, det är från robotar och från missiler. För att kunna möta det så behöver vi ha bra sensorer och bra vapensystem.
Den stora utmaningen för att möta den här typen av hot är att säkerställa kvaliteten på data. Det är otroligt tidskritiskt eftersom att de når oss i överljudshastighet.
In the realm of high-stakes defense, where technology is pushed to its limits, there's little room for error. In such critical situations, the ability to gather reliable information and transform it into an advance becomes paramount. This advantage is none other than time. A few precious seconds that can tip the scales and provide a crucial edge in countering threats.
Yeah, and like they're talking about here, you want to provide that time by detecting things earlier, of course, and classifying things earlier, but also sharing that information to other systems so that everyone gets the same picture, as we talked about. And also by automating several things, like perhaps you can't automate the engagement decision, but you can automate as much as possible so that you buy yourself time in everything, like from detection to your orientation, to your decision and to your acting. So the OODA loop applies, of course, here as well. So you want to buy yourself time at every point so you can make better quality decisions and have a chance to defeat the targets that are incoming.
A split-second game of chess with lightning speed reaction is required.
Vi behöver säkerställa att rätt information med rätt kvalitet finns på rätt ställe och det är över domänerna så att vi kan nyttja hela arsenalen för att verka mot hoten.
I funktionskedjan luftförsvar så använder vi ledningssystemet för att samla in information ifrån flera olika sensorer. Både aktiva som radar men även andra sensorer. Det här mixar vi till en gemensam bild och ifrån den bilden sen så kan vi ta beslut om vilken insats vi ska göra.
Yeah, that's what we just talked about. So you need to share the information, and now with Sweden joining NATO, you need to share the information not just internally between different kinds of Swedish systems, but also to our allies, of course, which in turn makes things very, very complicated from a classification point of view. It needs to be encrypted. It needs to be have systems that can actually talk to each other, and these are very, very different systems, of course. Here you have a great shot of a Gripen with a Meteor missile here. One of the best air-to-air missiles in the world. This is the Gripen E, which you can see by this IRST on top. You see the gun here, extra tank here, and yeah.
Säker integration innebär att vi kan verka med alla våra system på ett säkert och optimerat sätt. Och det möjliggör bland annat att vi kan nyttja det automatiska luftvärnssystemet på ett optimerat sätt och möta den här typen av hot.
Defending the skies above the Baltic Sea is a vast operation that requires joint actions and the ability to quickly operate across national territories, to identify, react and coordinate when faced with imminent danger requires quick and decisive actions. Enabling real-time data sharing and deploying advanced surveillance systems, utilizing state-of-the-art surveillance aircrafts to create time to act when threats arise. Fulfilling the task of surveilling our airspace demands that the technology is at the absolute forefront of innovation. Technology that, when applied correctly, can stretch a few precious seconds to what seems an impossible extent. We call this time to act, and it is among the most crucial functions in our defense arsenal. In the next
Yeah, time is a valuable resource, not just in life, but also in war fighting, of course, and defending your skies. But I think I will end it there. Thank you so much for watching to the end. please do me a solid if you haven't already. Give me a like on the video and subscribe to the channel, and consider sharing this video with someone who you think would like it. That helps us grow the channel a lot. And if you want to support the channel, you could buy me a coffee on Ko-Fi or become a channel member. You have that link in the description below. You can also follow me on social media and subscribe to my newsletter. All the links are below as always. But until next time, this is Max. Fly safe.